Welcome to the debate. Usually when we talk about preserving a city's heritage, there is this expectation of dust.
Yeah, dust and like faded photographs in some quiet municipal archive.
Right, exactly. Old newspaper clippings turning yellow or oral histories passed down over a quiet pint.
And I mean, it's beautiful exactly because it's vulnerable, right? It relies on people remembering or misremembering and sometimes actively arguing over the details of what actually happened.
But when you step into the modern digital age, that vulnerability becomes a serious liability. A local headline flashes on a screen and, well, it vanishes into an infinite algorithmic feed seconds later.
Oh, absolutely. It just disappears.
Today, we are looking at a system that attempts to solve that exact problem through a radical structure. We are examining the Corkonian universe.
Which is a genuinely fascinating, if deeply unsettling piece of engineering.
It is. It's essentially an intricate AI-driven cultural ecosystem created by David Ward and A. Ward Publications. It takes fleeting local news and the public language of Cork, Ireland, and attempts to turn it into a permanent, highly structured cultural asset using governed AI characters. And the central question we are debating today is this. Does this highly governed, human-in-the-loop ecosystem successfully preserve and elevate the authentic civic culture of Cork? Or does its rigid, audit-ready architecture sanitize organic community narratives into like a mechanical, over-engineered product?
That's the real crux of it.
Right. And we are drawing our arguments directly from the canonical design documents, portal interfaces, and governance frameworks of the Corkman system. I'll be arguing that this ecosystem is a triumph of scalable cultural preservation that protects local identity precisely because of its strict, deterministic rules.
And I will be arguing that this rigid civic abstraction actually sterilizes the very local chaos it seeks to celebrate. In my view, it prioritizes banking-level compliance and market strategy over genuine, breathing, cultural representation.
Well, let's lay out our initial positions. When you look at the source material, it becomes clear very quickly that David Ward has engineered a brilliant legal and cultural solution to the sheer chaos of generative AI.
Okay, go on.
He created what the system calls block golems, characters like Corkman and Corkwoman who are physically rendered in the artwork as being made of matte cork. And this isn't just a stylistic choice. It instantly fulfills the transparency requirements of the EU AI Act.
Specifically, Article 52.
Exactly. Article 52, which demands users know they are interacting with AI. There are no ugly watermarks plastered over the image, because the synthetic nature of the character is built right into its physical design.
It's a clever design hack, I'll give you that.
But beyond the compliance, this whole project is an exercise in discipline recognition, not generative excess. The system takes recurring public civic phrases, literally the words Corkman and Corkwoman appearing in local headlines, and anchors them to real geography like Shandon Tower or the English market.
Right, but
And it is overseen by what they call the Da Vinci Plus governance matrix and strict human-in-the-loop authorization. This prevents the AI from hallucinating fake history, right? It ensures every piece of published culture has a verifiable cryptographic nutrition label. I believe it is truly the only way to make cultural memory permanent in the 21st century.
I come at it from a completely different angle. When you read through these internal architectures and flat plans, what you are actually looking at is a massive digital business masking as a local archive.
Masking? That's a bit harsh.
But look at the documentation. The system utilizes what it calls a character style lock CSL001. That lock enforces programmatic prohibitions against showing extreme emotion. In doing so, it immediately strips the humanity and the vitality from local storytelling.
Well, I wouldn't say it strips humanity.
It absolutely does. And look at the strict hierarchical architecture of the backend. You have a character named Corknon managing Postgres databases and Wasabi cloud storage to ensure records are relational, immutable, local.
Which is essential for data survival.
Yes, but think about what it does to the culture itself. It turns organic community folklore into a sterilized ledger event. The culture is forced to fit a rigid structural flat plan where editorial rules dictate exactly how the city is allowed to be remembered. The system dictates the form of the culture. rather than allowing the culture to dictate its own dynamic form.
Okay, let's pause on the characters for a second because I think to really understand this, we need to look at how these governed nodes actually operate within the community, what they call the GAF.
Right, the community interaction.
Because the system isn't just one monolithic AI, it's a web of specific perspectives. You have Corkman, the civic guardian who detects the headline. Corkwoman is the investigator. Corknan, as you mentioned, is the librarian of data integrity. Corkgran acts as the guardian of meaning, and Corkran serves as the sports correspondent celebrating GAA and local athletics.
Right.
But the one I find most culturally grounded is Corksham.
Oh, yes. The system's designated pub philosopher.
Exactly. Corksham operates as a reviewer. When there is a local dispute, a court case, or some unusual community incident, he evaluates it using the scope scale. It ranks behavior from a green, harmless Egypt all the way up to a black, Corkonian historic scobe. But what's crucial is the governing philosophy behind this scale, which is explicitly written into the canon. A bad decision shouldn't become your entire story.
Which sounds great on a pitch deck.
But it's true. Standard Silicon Valley AI moderation usually just shadow bans you or deletes the controversy entirely, but the Corkonian system handles local infamy with a culturally resonant, forgiving mechanism. It proves the architecture actually understands the soul of the city.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. You're calling it a forgiving system, but look at how it actually categorizes these people. The scope scale is exactly where the sanitization becomes glaringly obvious.
How so?
When the system processes real-world antagonists, which the documentation literally lumps together as the gang or scobes, it renders them as grimy, hooded data anomalies. It actively dehumanizes the messy reality of street life.
I mean, they're data anomalies in the context of the AI.
And simultaneously, Corkman himself is forbidden from showing anything but a neutral civic present. He is programmatically prevented from experiencing or depicting extreme emotion, violence, or tragedy.
Because he isn't a real person.
But he is meant to represent the city. Real communities have anger, they have grief, they have complex generational disputes that do not fit neatly into a 5-level color-coded chart managed by a block of cork.
Okay, but
By forcing the city's narrative through this neutral filter, it creates a completely sanitized corporate version of an urban environment. It actively avoids genuine human complexity to ensure brand safety for A-Ward publications.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. We need to frame this against the alternative. We are talking about an AI system processing live public news. If we don't use these strict guardrails, what happens?
Well, obviously there are risks, but
Generative AI defaults to culturally hollow, generic Ireland cliches, a pint of stout and a leprechaun hat. Or, much worse, it generates fabricated, highly emotional deepfakes of real people involved in real, local tragedies.
that is a fair point.
the documentation explicitly prohibits facial modeling and identity simulation. It states, Corkonian does not reenact events, dramatize headlines, or parody individuals. Isn't a rigid, emotionally neutral block golem infinitely better and frankly more ethical than a deepfake that misrepresents a real citizen of Cork?
Okay, I'll admit from a purely technical standpoint, avoiding deepfakes is ethically safer. But look at the cost to the cultural soul it claims to preserve. The document says he exists where he has always existed, in the public record of Cork headlines.
Right.
But a headline is just a pointer to a human event. By stripping away the human event, the sweat, the tears, the actual stakes, and leaving only this syntactical phrase, embodied by a perpetually neutral mascot, you aren't preserving the event, you are just archiving the grammar.
But that is exactly the point of a civic abstraction. It is a visual embodiment of a recurring phrase, not a likeness of an individual. But look, a character like Corksham or Corkman is useless in a vacuum. How does a real citizen actually interact with him without breaking all these strict rules we just talked about?
Right.
This brings us to the Corkonian portal and the wider application environment, because this isn't just a passive comic book, it's an active ecosystem.
Yes, the portal. This is where the corporate machinery really shows its hand to the public.
I fundamentally disagree with that characterization. The Corkonian portal is an empowering tool. Imagine you have a piece of family history, say, a photograph of your Aunt Molly in the English market in 1968.
Okay, sure.
You can ingest that source into the system through the Sovereign Vault. There is the Heritage Academy, which preserves the local language by actively adding glossary terms like GABA for a small inlet. And crucially, there is the Governance Replay.
Which sounds incredibly dense.
It sounds dense, but the mechanism is brilliant. Think of it like an instant replay in sports, but for data. Every single asset that gets published requires a cryptographic human lock.
Ah, the wax seal.
Exactly. An operator, let's say DP Ward 001, has to use a GPG sign and approve protocol. Basically, it's a digital wax seal proving a real human looked at this piece of culture and authorized it. This is their 3 verification system: Echo Boy, archival log, human hand. It guarantees absolute trust and authenticity.
Trust and authenticity for a bank, perhaps? Listen to the terminology the user interface relies on. Asset reconstructability, staged sources, ledger integrity.
It's precise language.
The health dashboard literally tracks chain breaks and orphaned items. When you look at this interface, it feels exactly like a compliance dashboard for a financial institution, not a community archive for a vibrant city. And then, to make this heavy administrative burden palatable to the everyday user, they gamify it.
You're talking about the compliance score and the Barry's Teabags points.
Exactly. You get Barry's tea bags for interacting with your own cultural heritage. It is an invasive corporatization of memory. You are taking oral folklore, the beautiful, fluid story of Aunt Molly in the English market, and you are forcing the user to tag it with evidence levels and landmark connections, only to submit it to a Fire-based database managed by A. Ward Publications.
But that's to protect it.
It transforms the shared communal act of remembering into a literal data entry job for a sovereign tech ecosystem.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it completely differently. I see why that terminology feels jarring, but we have to look at why that rigor exists. We live in an age of digital decay and misinformation.
Sure, link rot is real.
It's more than link rot. Context is stripped from images the second they hit social media. When you upload a historical photo to a regular platform today, it gets compressed, scraped by
Most
other
people
bots,
see the
and lost
headline.
in the noise.
Corkman
Applying
sees the people
financial-grade
behind
ledger
it.
security to cultural
Every
memory
story has a
isn't an
human
insult,
side.
It's the highest form of
Context
respect.
matters.
Respect by turning it into a ledger entry?
The documentation states, if an asset cannot be reconstructed from its metadata, it does not exist.
Which is a terrifying sentence if you care about oral history.
Not if you care about survival. That isn't corporate overreach, it's archival survival. It means 50 years from now, that photo of Aunt Molly won't just be a stray, contextless JPEG floating on a dead server. It will have an immutable timestamp, a clear artist credit, and a verifiable geographic anchor that proves it belonged to Cork.
Well, I can see that the technical architecture ensuring data survival is robust. Using Wasabi storage for immutable backups is brilliant for security. My issue isn't the security. My issue is what that security does to the art and the culture, because everything has to pass through the DaVinci Plus policy chain.
Right.
If an everyday Cork resident uploads a story and the system detects a guardrail violation, the machine intervenes.
And that is where the flag but produce feature comes in, which I think is one of the most sophisticated parts of the entire architecture.
Explain.
Instead of creating historical blind spots by simply deleting anomalies, which is what most social platforms do, the system acts like an intelligent assembly line. If a bad actor tries to inject a harmful story or the AI hallucinates, it flags the issue but continues production, forwarding it to specific human experts based on risk.
Right.
It ensures the historical archive never has gaps, while still maintaining safety.
It maintains the archive safety, yes, but not necessarily the culture's truth. And this perfectly transitions into the ultimate endpoint of all this data processing, which is the strategy behind the Cork record.
The publishing arm?
Yes, this is where David Ward's grand vision and the market reality truly align. Have you looked closely at the annualization rule for the Cork record?
I have, yeah. The rule dictates that for future editions, the structure stays identical, and only the content swaps out. The headlines, images, and cards change, but the rules, layout logic, and pagination ranges remain entirely fixed.
Right. Think about it like a classic board game. The board itself, the rules, the layout, the architecture never changes. All that changes are the cards you draw. The canonical rule states, if someone asks, can this be reprinted or updated without redesign, the answer must be yes. That rule alone reveals the true nature of the Corkonian universe. It is not an evolving, breathing cultural project. It is a highly scalable, repeatable publishing product. The living culture of the city is merely the fuel being fed into a predefined machine.
But why is that a bad thing? Structure is how you scale preservation.
Because the machine categorizes everything into rigid templates. It ingests the chaos of Cork, parses the local headlines, and maps them to archetypes. So Roy Keane becomes the warrior template, Saniel Sullivan becomes a trailblazer. It spits out a perfectly formatted 156-card game and book. The culture serves the engine, not the other way around.
You are completely missing the brilliance of how the intellectual property is structured here. The ecosystem explicitly separates the ownership of the engine from the ownership of the identity.
How so?
The documents are crystal clear on this. Every customer gets their own identity file. Your system owns the engine, they own the character. A-Ward Publications isn't hoarding the culture, they are providing the sovereign pipeline to govern it.
I see.
When the system matches a headline to an archetype like the warrior, it isn't reducing the person. It is utilizing a structured framework to ensure the output remains true to the Cork context.
I'm not sure I follow how putting someone in a template makes it more true to Cork, because the engine actively fights against homogenization. If a scene generated by the AI could easily be Dublin or Galway, it fails the Cork context reference check.
The system mathematically demands local anchors. It forces the inclusion of a Hurley, or the Shandon Tower, or the River Lee.
But even those anchors are applied mechanically. The design documents say one strong prop beats 5 weak cliches. So the AI injects a Hurley or a cobblestone lane simply to mathematically satisfy the local knowledge map. It's synthetic authenticity.
I wouldn't call it synthetic.
It is. And look at how these characters are marketed. The brand's tagline is, I'm Cork Man, not just a Cork Man. It is a deliberate move to connect the news, the archive, the app, the books, and the characters into one massive monetizable ecosystem. It is a masterclass in digital franchising. Corknan, Corkran, Corksham, they aren't folklore. They are highly optimized brand extensions designed to cover every sector of the market, from sports to heritage to database management.
I hear that criticism, but I have to ask, why must scalability and cultural preservation be mutually exclusive?
They aren't mutually exclusive, but
If you want to protect local heritage from being subsumed by trillion-dollar globalized AI models, you need a system strong enough to fight back on a global scale. Cork is effectively serving as the test case for a problem every local community on Earth is facing right now.
that is definitely true. The local versus global AI fight is real.
Right. The DaVinci Plus framework, the PostgreSQL databases, the human-in-the-loop authorization, these are the weapons required to defend local identity today. David Ward didn't just build a comic book or a card game, he built a fortress. And by keeping the characters as block golems, he ensures the technology never tricks the user. The transparency is literally built into the texture of the Cork itself.
It is a fortress, yes. But it's a fortress with a gift shop.
That's cynical.
I don't deny the technical achievement here, the integration of cryptographic signatures to verify human authorization, that GPG wax seal we talked about, is a genuinely pioneering approach to AI accountability. But a fortress inevitably isolates what it protects. By demanding that every piece of culture pass through a rigid hierarchy of editorial flat plans, color ledger checks, and gamified compliance scores, the system builds a wall between the people of Cork and their own stories. They stop being active participants in a living tradition and become operators and depositors in a cultural bank.
Well, as we draw this debate to a close, I think our positions reflect a much deeper philosophical divide in how we view the future of digital preservation. From my perspective, the Corkonian ecosystem is a pioneering model of ethical generative constraint.
Right.
It proves that we do not have to surrender our local heritage to the whims of deepfakes and algorithmic amnesia. By anchoring public language through immutable relational records and enforcing clear human-in-the-loop oversight, we can protect the soul of a city. The strict deterministic rules, the matte cork, the rigid flat plans, the banking-grade ledger, are not sterilizations. They are the necessary armor that allows civic memory to survive the internet age.
And while I completely concede that the technological architecture sets a massive new benchmark for AI transparency and data survival, I maintain my core concern. The system prioritizes auditability over cultural soul. When you take the vibrant, unpredictable, and often beautifully messy life of a city like Cork, and you force it through a compliance dashboard that tracks government's health and staged sources, you lose the very essence of what makes local culture human. The system turns dynamic folklore into a rigid, synthesized data pipeline designed first and foremost for market scalability.
But I think it's clear we converge on one major point. The Corkonian universe, driven by David Ward's architecture, represents a highly sophisticated step forward. It completely redefines how digital businesses might approach local intellectual property and the integration of artificial intelligence in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
It forces us to ask hard questions about what it means to truly archive a community in real time.
I agree entirely. Whether you view it as a cultural vault or a publishing machine, there is so much more to explore within the architecture of the Cork record. It will undoubtedly serve as a critical case study for years to come, not just for Cork, but honestly for any community trying to navigate the AI era.
We started today by talking about the dust of old archives, the fading photographs, and the quiet oral histories that are so easily lost. The Corkonian universe offers a radical alternative, a machine that attempts to catch the lightning of daily life and lock it securely in a cryptographic vault.
For better or for worse.
Exactly. Whether that machine represents the ultimate salvation of local culture or simply its packaging and sanitization is a question that will only be answered by the people of Cork themselves. Thank you for joining us on the debate, and we will leave you to form your own conclusion.